Hey crafty people, it's Tasha. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm sharing some inspiration for a little bit of elegant mixed media. This has got the texture, movement and interest of a mixed media piece, but with all the elegance of a much more clean and simple design. You really don't have to choose one or the other. So I'm using products from the April My Monthly Hero kit from Hero Arts. Unfortunately, this one is actually totally sold out, but you can take these ideas and use your own supplies to create something similar if you don't have this set. Let's start with creating those beautiful butterflies. So I've got a panel of Nina 80 and some of Hero Arts' mini core ink cubes in shades of purple. I'm creating some interesting patterns that I can cut the butterflies from. So first of all, I'm using a small ink blending brush to add splotches of ink onto the top half of my panel. I'm just randomly putting down my brush and I'm not worried about even blending at all. In fact, I want some areas to be more inked than others because that's going to give me some really fun visual texture. Then on that lower half, I'm taking my ink cube directly to the panel, swiping across, and you'll see that I am going to start overlapping colours on top of each other, which is going to give me even more shades of purple. Now, I'm using the 3 shades of core ink that you see on my desk, and I'm going to go back and add more of any colour that I feel needs it until I'm happy with the amount of colour that I have. I'm also looking for those interesting kind of sections where one colour meets another, because that's where I'm going to find the most visually appealing butterflies. The last addition is some swipes of the lightest ink over all of it. So once I'm happy with the panel that I've got, I can start die cutting. Now I've skipped over quite a bit of this part because it is really repetitive, but basically I'm just using the dies from this month's My Monthly Hero to die cut butterflies from all over this panel. It would be difficult to get these kind of results trying to colour the butterflies individually, but by cutting them from a whole panel of random inking, we're going to get some seriously unique results. I chose different shades of purple for my butterflies today, but you could choose absolutely any colour and you could switch up the techniques for inking up your panel. Maybe use a stencil or background stamp, for example. Let's create that stunning liquid silver background now. It's so quick and simple to do, and you only need a couple of supplies to get this kind of result. We're starting with white hero paste. Now, this is my personal favourite, but you could use any texture paste type product and it should work. I'm taking some of the paste out with an offset palette knife and then applying it straight onto a panel of white cardstock. I should have used some mixed media cardstock, but I totally spaced and I just grabbed from my usual £80 Nina. Luckily, I did make it work, but I would definitely suggest trying a thicker cardstock if you try this technique. I'm laying it on quite thick, which allows me to create some kind of peaks and valleys within the paste just by pressing and lifting the palette knife as I'm moving across the panel. Then I'm letting the layer get thinner as I move up the panel, and I'm leaving a gap on the upper left hand side, which is where I'm planning to stamp my sentiment. Once I'm happy with the paste, I'm laying a piece of scrap paper underneath and bringing out my polished silver embossing powder from Wow. This stuff is stunning and it always looks like liquid silver, but with the texture of the paste, that just takes it up even further. I'm covering the paste with my powder and being careful to make sure that I get over all of that texture because I don't want any of that paste to stay uncovered. That embossing is going to accentuate the texture even more. Now let's heat it up and see the pure magic of this embossing powder. To maintain the panel exactly as it is, let it dry fully before heating. But to be honest, I was in a bit of a hurry to finish before my lunch was ready, so I just went straight in there with my heat tool. This did mean that I got some substantial warping, which, to be honest, is only really fair enough considering that I was using £80 Nina. I did manage to fix it, but to avoid that, let the paste dry slowly before heating. It looked fine after I heated it, but because that moisture that was inside the thicker areas of the paste had nowhere to escape because the embossing had sealed it. So when I left it and came back, it was so curled up, it looked like a scroll. I did have to apply several pieces of cardstock stacked up behind it to hold the panel flat. So this is still before I left it when it was still flat, and you can see that the initial result was actually pretty good. So I've loaded my panel into my mini Misty, and I'm stamping a sentiment from this set, which was also in the My Monthly Hero. I thought this sentiment in particular fit really well in this space up here. Let's pull those beautiful butterflies back out. I'm not going to need all of these for this design, so I'm choosing some of my favourites, and the rest will go back in the wallet that the dies came out of, and I can use those on another project. You can see some of those stripes across some of them, and they're all different despite being coloured with the same 3 ink pads. I'm gently bending the wings up so they sit away from the background a little. I want to make sure that these butterflies really pop off that background, as it is quite attention grabbing. So I'm using a black marker to colour in the bodies and antennae for each one. I really feel like this makes such a difference. Like I said before, I want the butterflies' wings to be slightly elevated. So I'm just placing a thin line of Hero Arts liquid glue down the centre before placing it on my panel. This glue is really strong holding, so I'm not worried about them falling off at all. I have sped it up, but I wanted to show you the process that I have for positioning them. I like to place my larger images first and then fill out the scene by adding progressively smaller images until I feel like the design is as full as it should be. Then I'm going back through, making sure all of my wings are nicely raised and just giving them a little help. I decided to embellish with some little purple gems, which I think really ties it all together. And there you go, there's my beautifully elegant mixed media card design. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and if you aren't already, please consider subscribing so that you don't miss any of my uploads. It would mean the world to me. Have a lovely, happy, safe and wonderful week. Stay crafty. Bye.